Look, I want to start by saying that everything I did was completely necessary for survival. Sure, maybe using the ambassador's ceremonial staff as a makeshift conductor violated about 15 different cultural taboos. And yes, technically reprogramming the maintenance bots to play Duck Duck Goose with radioactive waste canisters wasn't in any approved safety manual. But when you're trying to keep a state-of-the-art space station from becoming a very expensive cloud of debris, sometimes you have to get creative. I'm Jack Cooper, and until about 6 standard cycles ago, I was the only human maintenance engineer on Galactic Council Research Station Epsilon 17. Now I'm sitting in a holding cell waiting for my tribunal, trying to explain to a very confused alien AI why humans consider duct tape to be a perfectly valid engineering solution. But Prisoner Cooper, the AI drones, for what must be the 20th time, the adhesive strip in question is not rated for vacuum exposure or high-energy plasma containment. Neither is my left boot, I reply, but that didn't stop it from saving Deck 7's atmospheric processors, did it? The AI makes that distinctive humming sound that I've learned means it's having an existential crisis. I've been causing a lot of those lately, but I'm getting ahead of myself to really understand how I ended up turning the station's most prestigious diplomatic summit into what Ambassador Thraxel called an unauthorized demonstration of primitive survival techniques. We need to go back to the beginning. Back to when I first discovered that the most advanced space station in the galaxy had been designed by engineers who had never heard of Murphy's Law. It all started during what was supposed to be a routine maintenance check, just hours before the summit began. I was in the primary coolant control room, which the Galactic Council had helpfully designed to be accessible only through a series of perfectly geometric corridors. No emergency shortcuts, no maintenance tunnels, no quick access panels, because why would you need those in an emergency? That would imply your perfect design could fail, and according to Chief Safety Officer Klarvax, their designs never fail. I was elbow deep in a coolant manifold when my comm unit chirped. "Engineer Cooper." Ambassador Thraxel's voice wavered with its usual mix of politeness and barely concealed stress. "Please tell me you're not actually bypassing the tertiary safety protocols on the station's primary cooling system." I glanced at the very much bypassed safety protocols and the jerry-rigged bypass circuit I'd installed. "Of course not, Ambassador. I'm simply conducting a comprehensive analysis of the system's emergency response capabilities through practical simulation." "You're what?" "I'm making sure it won't explode when you stuff the station with twice its rated occupancy for the summit." There was a long pause. "Carry on," Thraxel said finally, in the tone of someone who had decided that not knowing the details was better for their peace of mind. That's when the first alarm went off. Not one of those polite "excuse me, but there might be a small issue" alarms that the station usually used. This was a full-on, "something is very wrong, and the AI doesn't know what to do about it" alarm. The kind that isn't supposed to exist on a perfect station. The holographic displays around me flickered, turned an alarming shade of purple I'd never seen before, and then displayed a message that made my stomach drop. "Critical system failure cascade detected. Probability of station survival 12.3%. Remember what I said about Murphy's Law? Well, I was about to give the entire Galactic Council a crash course in human engineering principles, whether they wanted it or not. And judging by the rapidly dropping temperature in the coolant control room, they were going to get that lesson sooner rather than later. I grabbed my toolkit, including the duct tape that would later become Exhibit A in my tribunal, and headed for the door. Behind me, the AI announced in its eternally calm voice, "Warning, Emergency Procedures Manual Section 47B does not cover current situation. Initiating total shutdown as per safety protocol." "Oh, no, you don't," I muttered, already pulling out my tablet to start hacking. If there's one thing humans know how to do, it's survive situations that shouldn't be survivable. And I was about to give the Galactic Council a masterclass in survival, whether they liked it or not. They really didn't like it, as it turned out. But that's getting ahead of the story again. 6 months earlier, I stood in front of Ambassador Thraxel's desk, trying not to stare at the way their head frills changed color every time they blinked. The ambassador was reviewing my credentials with the kind of careful scrutiny usually reserved for examining unstable antimatter containment units. "Engineer Cooper," they said finally, laying down their tablet with exactly the prescribed amount of ceremonial gravitas, "your qualifications are unusual." "Unusual good or unusual bad?" I asked, already knowing the answer. My human engineering degree might as well have been written in crayon, as far as most of the Galactic Council was concerned. "Your species has only achieved faster-than-light travel within the last century," Thraxall noted, head frills shifting to a concerned mauve. "And yet you claim expertise in quantum containment field maintenance?" "We're fast learners," I said. "Also, we broke our first 3 containment fields figuring out how they worked. Nothing teaches you maintenance like having to rebuild something from scratch while radiation alarms are screaming." The ambassador's frills went pale. "I see. And this notation about improvised repairs using adhesive strips?" "Duct tape," I corrected helpfully. "Every human engineer's best friend. That and WD-40. I'm unfamiliar with these technical terms. They're more of a philosophy than a technology," I explained, which didn't seem to help. That's when Dr. Pyx walked in, their 8-limbed form moving with the peculiar grace of the arachnid scientific cast. Unlike most of the station's senior staff, Dr. Pyx actually seemed excited to see a human. "Ambassador, is this our new engineer?" "Excellent." Dr. Pyx's mandibles clicked enthusiastically. "I've been studying human engineering principles. Fascinating approach to problem solving. Did you know they intentionally design redundant systems with the expectation of failure?" "We prefer to call it pragmatic pessimism," I offered. "Precisely." Dr. Pyx waved several limbs excitedly. "They have this wonderful concept called Murphy's Law that perfectly encapsulates their engineering philosophy. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Therefore they prepare for everything to go wrong simultaneously." Ambassador Thraxall's frills had progressed to an alarming shade of green. "Dr. Pyx, need I remind you that Station Epsilon 17 was designed using the Council's perfect design principles? Nothing can go wrong because we have eliminated all possibilities of failure." Dr. Pyx and I shared a look that I would later come to recognize as our mutual, "Oh, you sweet summer child" expression. "Of course, Ambassador," Dr. Pyx said soothingly. "But surely having an engineer familiar with alternative repair methodologies could only enhance our station's safety." The ambassador's frills settled into a resigned grey. "Very well. Engineer Cooper, you are hereby assigned to Maintenance Level 3. Please note that all repairs must follow the Standard Operating Procedures Manual, Volumes 1 through 732. I was about to ask if there was a Cliff Notes version when Chief Safety Officer Clarvax burst into the office, their crystalline form practically vibrating with indignation. "Ambassador, you cannot be serious about hiring a Death Worlder for maintenance. Their solution to everything is to hit it until it works." "That's not true," I protested. "Sometimes we kick it." Clarvax's crystalline structure emitted a high-pitched tone that I'm pretty sure translated to, "See what I mean?" "The decision has been made," Ambassador Thraxall said firmly. "Engineer Cooper comes highly recommended by the Human Engineering Corps." "The same Human Engineering Corps that considers explosive decompression a valid method of garbage disposal?" Clarvax asked acidly. "Hey, that was one time, and technically it was also a propulsion test," I said. This did not appear to help my case. Over the next few months I learned several important things about Station Epsilon 17. First, the perfect design principles apparently didn't account for basic concepts like thermal expansion, material fatigue, or the fact that sometimes things just break because the universe has a sense of humor. Second, the Standard Operating Procedures Manual was less a repair guide and more a religious text about the infallibility of Galactic Council engineering. And third, Chief Safety Officer Clarvax had apparently made it their life's mission to catch me violating safety protocols. Which, to be fair, I did, a lot, but only because the approved procedures seemed specifically designed to take 10 times longer than necessary, and usually involved shutting down entire systems just to replace a single faulty component. Dr. Pwix became my unofficial ally in what they called my fascinating demonstrations of human ingenuity, and what Clavax called reckless disregard for proper procedures. They would often find excuses to observe my repair work, taking notes and asking questions about human engineering principles. "So this percussive maintenance technique," they asked one day while watching me deal with a stuck valve, "it really works?" I gave the valve a precisely calibrated whack with my trusty wrench. The valve clicked into place with a satisfied hiss. Would you believe me if I told you we got to the moon using computers with less processing power than the device that runs the coffee maker in the crew lounge? Fascinating and terrifying. Dr. Pix's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Perhaps there is something to be said for your species' approach to problem solving. Just wait until I show you what we can do with paperclips and chewing gum, I said, not knowing that I would soon be demonstrating exactly that during the biggest diplomatic crisis in recent Galactic Council history. But first we had to get through the summit, and that's when everything started going wrong in exactly the way that perfect design principles said was impossible. Murphy's Law, as it turns out, doesn't care about perfect designs. It just likes to prove points. The day of the summit started exactly the way you'd expect a galactic-scale disaster to begin, with paperwork. Specifically, with Chief Safety Officer Clavax presenting me with a stack of safety compliance forms taller than they were. "These must be completed before you can access any station systems during the summit," they announced, their crystalline form glowing with what I can only describe as bureaucratic satisfaction. "The summit starts in 3 hours, I pointed out. "Then I suggest you type quickly." Their crystalline lattice chimed with what passed for laughter in their species. I was halfway through Form 47B, subsection 12, requirements for emergency tool usage in non-emergency situations that may become emergency situations, when the first system hiccup hit. A slight power fluctuation in the main conference hall, nothing major, just enough to make the universal translators glitch for a second. Unfortunately, that second happened right as the Vosnak ambassador was delivering what they thought was a formal greeting to the Hive Mind Collective. What they actually said, according to Dr. Pix, who witnessed it, was something anatomically impossible involving 3 space squids and a particle accelerator. I was racing to the power distribution center when Ambassador Thraxel's voice came over my comm. "Engineer Cooper, please tell me that was an isolated incident." The warning lights on my diagnostic panel chose that moment to start their impression of a Death World disco. Define isolated. Cooper, remember how I said stuffing the station with twice its rated occupancy might cause problems? Well, surprise. The power grid is trying to handle about 3 times the expected load, and it's getting cranky. The perfect design principles state that the power grid can handle any load variation within normal parameters. Clavax cut in on the comm channel. I watched as another section of the power grid turned red on my display. With all due respect to the perfect design principles, they can kiss my... The universal translator chose that moment to fail completely, which was probably for the best, and that's when the cascade really began. The power fluctuations caused the environmental systems to hiccup. The environmental systems hiccup made the gravity generators stutter. The gravity generators stutter caused a resonance in the quantum containment fields. And the quantum containment fields? Well, let's just say they decided to join the party in a way that made Chernobyl look like a wet firecracker. "Status report," Ambassador Thraxel demanded. I looked at my displays, most of which were now showing errors in languages I'm pretty sure hadn't been invented yet. "You want the good news or the bad news?" "Good news first. The quantum containment fields haven't failed completely." "And the bad news?" "They're about to. Also, we're losing atmosphere on decks 3 through 7. The gravity is about to reverse in the main conference hall, and I'm pretty sure the coffee maker in the crew lounge is plotting revolution." "The Standard Operating Procedures Manual clearly states," Clavax began. "The Standard Operating Procedures Manual can bite my emergency toolkit. We've got about 20 minutes before this station becomes the galaxy's most expensive fireworks display, and I'm going to need full access to all systems." There was a long pause. I could practically hear Ambassador Thraxall's frills changing colours. "Absolutely not," Clavax declared. "Giving a human unrestricted access to critical systems violates at least 73 safety protocols." That's when Dr. Pix's voice joined the channel. "Ambassador, I've just finished analysing the containment field degradation pattern. Engineer Cooper's assessment is optimistic. We have 15 minutes at most." Another pause. I used it to start bypassing safety protocols. I figured it was better to ask forgiveness than permission, especially when permission might take longer than the station had left. "Cooper," Ambassador Thraxall said finally, "what do you need?" "Full system access, no oversight, and immunity from prosecution for whatever I'm about to do to this station's perfect design." "You can't be serious," Clavax screeched. "Granted," the ambassador said. "Just keep us intact. No promises about the coffee maker, though," I added, already running toward the maintenance shaft. "It knows what it did." Behind me I could hear Clavax starting what promised to be an epic rant about safety protocols and proper procedures. I tuned them out, focused on the rapidly deteriorating systems around me. Time to show the Galactic Council why humans had survived on a planet that seemed designed to kill us. First stop, the quantum containment fields, and I was going to need every bit of duct tape I had. The best part? This wasn't even the craziest part of my day. That would come later, right around the time I had to explain to the Galactic Council's highest officials why there was a conga line of maintenance bots carrying radioactive waste through the main conference hall. But we'll get to that. First, I had some safety protocols to creatively reinterpret. And by reinterpret, I mean completely ignore in ways that would probably give Clavax's crystalline structure stress fractures. Just another day at the office for a human engineer in space. Here's the thing about quantum containment fields. They're basically just very fancy boxes that hold very dangerous things that really don't want to be in boxes. And when those boxes start failing, you need to think outside them. Way outside them. I reached the primary containment chamber just as another alarm joined the chorus of impending doom. This one was screaming about atmospheric pressure differentials, which was a polite way of saying we were about to have several new windows installed by explosive decompression. "Dr. Pix," I called over the comm while pulling open my toolkit. "Remember when you asked me about human emergency repair techniques? The ones involving adhesive strips and primitive fasteners? You're about to get a practical demonstration. How fast can you get to the maintenance storage room and grab everything that looks like it wasn't designed by the Council?" Define "wasn't designed by the Council." If Clavax would have an aneurysm looking at it, that's what we want. I could hear the clicking of multiple limbs moving rapidly. On my way. Should I bring the non-regulation power couplers we confiscated from the Rigelian traders? Perfect. Also, if you see any paper clips, grab them. And bubble gum. Bubble gum. Trust me, it's a time-honored human engineering tool. While Dr. Pricks went on their scavenger hunt, I started what I like to call creative system reconfiguration. This mostly involved convincing the station's AI that what I was doing was totally within safety parameters, just not the ones it knew about. "Warning," the AI announced. "Unauthorized modification of containment field parameters detected." "Override code Cooper Alpha Duct Tape," I replied, pulling out my tablet to start hacking. "Override code not recognized. Please consult Safety Manual Volume 472, Section 9, Subsection C for proper—" "How about override code shut up and let me save your circuit board?" The AI paused. "That code is also not recognized. However, primary containment failure in 7 minutes may render safety protocols moot." Now you're getting it. That's when Clavax burst into the chamber, their crystalline form practically strobing with alarm patterns. "Engineer Cooper, step away from that control panel immediately." I didn't look up from where I was splicing wires that definitely weren't meant to be spliced. "Sorry, can't hear you over the sound of imminent catastrophic failure. Those systems are not designed to—" "Yeah, that's kind of the problem," I yanked out a power coupling and replaced it with a paperclip wrapped in duct tape. Your perfect design didn't plan for anything to go wrong, so when something does go wrong, there's no way to fix it. That's because nothing is supposed to go wrong. How's that working out for us right now? As if to emphasize my point, the gravity chose that moment to hiccup. We both floated about 6 inches off the floor before slamming back down. In the distance, I heard what sounded suspiciously like a herd of diplomats screaming. Dr. Poix arrived then, their 8 limbs loaded with what looked like the contents of a human hardware store, having a fight with alien technology. I brought everything that looked sufficiently primitive. Perfect. I grabbed a handful of paper clips and what appeared to be the alien equivalent of rubber bands. Okay, time for some emergency engineering. Dr. Puix, I need you to help me convince the AI that what we're about to do is completely safe and normal. And what exactly are we about to do, they asked, mandibles clicking curiously. I held up the paper clips and grinned. We're going to rebuild this containment field using office supplies and spite. That is absolutely not happening. Clavax moved to block the control panel. I cannot allow... They never finished that sentence because at that exact moment, the primary coolant system decided to join the party by exploding spectacularly. Well, not exploding so much as enthusiastically disassembling itself at high velocity. I dove under a spray of coolant, shouting, Dr. Pix, get me that bubble gum. Clavax, either help or get out of the way, because I'm about to do something that's going to make every safety inspector in the galaxy cry. What are you going to do? Dr. Pix asked, passing me the gum while using their other limbs to help reroute power cables. I'm going to teach this station about humanity's greatest engineering principle, the kludge. The what? It's when you fix something in a way that shouldn't work, definitely isn't pretty, probably violates several laws of physics, but somehow gets the job done anyway. I could practically hear Clavax's crystalline structure cracking from stress. That's not engineering. That's... Saving your life? I suggested, jamming a makeshift power converter made from paper clips and bubblegum wrapper into the containment field generator. Because in about 3 minutes, this station is either going to be saved by human ingenuity or become a very exciting new addition to local space debris, and I know which one I'm voting for. That's when I noticed the maintenance bots waiting patiently in the corridor. An idea struck me, a terrible, wonderful, absolutely insane idea that would probably get me fired if it didn't work, and definitely get me arrested if it did. Dr. Puix, I said slowly, how do you feel about teaching robots to dance? Their mandibles clicked in what I'd learned was their equivalent of a grin. Engineer Cooper, I believe I'm beginning to understand why humans survived on a death world. Just wait, I replied, pulling out my tablet to start reprogramming the bots. We haven't even gotten to the part where I use the ambassador's ceremonial staff as an emergency power conductor. Behind us, Clavax made a sound like shattering glass. I chose to take it as applause. Let me paint you a picture of what peak human engineering looks like. Imagine a conga line of maintenance bots, each carrying extremely radioactive waste canisters, dancing through the main conference hall of the most prestigious space station in the galaxy. Leading this parade, a jerry-rigged power conductor made from the ambassador's ceremonial staff, held together with duct tape and decorated with emergency glow sticks. And that wasn't even the weird part. Cooper, Ambassador Thraxul's voice crackled over the comm. Please tell me why there are maintenance bots doing the Macarena through the Galactic Council's emergency session. Would you believe it's a vital part of saving all our lives? No. Well, it is. The containment fields are failing faster than we can repair them, so we're using the bots to move the radioactive material to safer storage, and they have to move in a specific pattern to avoid creating dangerous resonance waves in the artificial gravity field. And this pattern just happens to be a conga line. Hey, physics has a sense of humor. Who am I to argue? The truly hilarious part, it was actually working. Each synchronized movement of the bot conga line was helping stabilize the station's rapidly deteriorating gravity field. Dr. Puix had done the math, all 8 arms working different calculators simultaneously, and confirmed that somehow, through what they called improbable but mathematically sound human insanity, the dance pattern was creating a counter-resonance to the field fluctuations. Fascinating, they clicked, watching the bots shimmy past with their deadly cargo. The rhythmic movement combined with the mass distribution is actually generating a stabilizing wave pattern, though I'm not sure the lyrics were necessary. They help the bots keep time, I explained, adjusting the makeshift power conductor. I'd wrapped the ambassador's staff in superconducting wire salvaged from a broken coffee maker, creating what was probably the galaxy's most expensive emergency tool. That's when Clavax made their final stand. They burst into the conference hall, leading a team of security drones. "This ends now. Security protocol override. Terminate all unauthorized bot activities." "No, wait," I started, but it was too late. The security override hit just as the bot conga line was passing through its most crucial point. The bots froze mid-dance step, their cargo of radioactive waste hovering precariously. Warning alarms screamed across every system. The gravity field started to collapse. And because the universe loves irony, the first place it failed was right under Clavax's feet. They floated upward, crystalline form refracting emergency lights in a panic-inducing disco ball effect. "What's happening?" "You just interrupted the only thing keeping this station from turning itself inside out," I shouted, already running calculations on my tablet. "Dr. Puix, how long until total system failure?" "At current degradation rates, 2 minutes, maybe less if the containment fields go first." I looked at my tablet, then at the frozen bots, then at the increasingly panicked gathering of the galaxy's most important diplomats floating near the ceiling. Time for the last resort. The thing I'd been avoiding because it was either going to save everyone or get me executed for crimes against engineering. "Dr. Pix, remember when I told you about human engineering's greatest achievement?" Their mandibles clicked uncertainly. "The paperclip?" "No, the other one, the one that makes Clavax's safety protocols cry." Their eyes widened. "The kludge? I'm about to kludge harder than any human has kludged before." I turned to the floating form of Clavax. "I need your security override codes, all of them." "Absolutely not, that would violate—" "Every safety protocol in existence, yes, but right now those protocols are about to kill everyone on this station. So what's it going to be? Your perfect rules or imperfect survival?" I could see the conflict in their crystalline structure, refracting patterns of indecision. Then, finally, security override code, Clavax Prime Safety Ultimate. "Thank you." I was already typing, fingers flying over my tablet. "Now everyone hold on to something. This is going to get weird." What followed was probably the single greatest violation of engineering principles in galactic history. I used the security codes to access every system simultaneously. Then, using a combination of human ingenuity, bubblegum paperclips, and what Dr. Puix would later call flagrant disregard for the laws of physics, I did something beautiful and terrible. I turned the entire station into one giant kludge. The maintenance bots resumed their dance, but now they were part of a larger pattern. Every system that was failing, every component that was breaking down, became part of an interconnected web of jury-rigged solutions. The artificial gravity started working because it was tied to the life support, which was powered by the coolant system, which was stabilized by the dancing bots, which were coordinated by the reprogrammed coffee maker. None of it should have worked. It violated every principle of proper engineering. It probably violated several laws of physics, but in that moment, as alarms turned to steady hums and emergency lights faded to normal, it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Dr. Puix was the first to speak. That was pure human engineering, I finished, grinning as I watched the last system stabilize. Sometimes the best solution is the one that makes the least sense. Above us, still floating near the ceiling, Ambassador Thraxul's frills had cycled through so many colors they'd invented a few new ones. "Engineer Cooper, I believe we need to have a discussion about your methods." "Can it wait until after we get the diplomats down from the ceiling? I think the Vosnak ambassador is getting motion sick, and trust me, you don't want to see what that looks like in zero gravity." As I started working on restoring normal gravity, I couldn't help but notice Clavax staring at their own security override console. Their crystalline form had taken on a pattern I'd never seen before. "Something wrong?" I asked. "According to every safety protocol, every design principle, every rule of proper engineering, this station should not be functioning. And yet—" "Welcome to human engineering," I said cheerfully, "where impossible is just another word for hasn't been duct-taped yet. The thing about saving a space station through flagrant violations of every known safety protocol is that there's a lot of paperwork afterward. And by a lot, I mean I'm pretty sure several entire forests on multiple planets died to produce the incident reports." I sat in the tribunal chamber watching the panel of senior engineers try to make sense of my emergency repairs. They had holograms of the station's systems floating around them, showing my creative solutions in all their jerry-rigged glory. "Let me see if I understand this correctly," the head of the tribunal said, her tentacles curling in what might have been confusion or indigestion. "You used adhesive strips, primitive fasteners, and a reprogrammed beverage dispenser to save the station. Don't forget the ceremonial staff conductor and the radioactive waste conga line," I helpfully added. One of her tentacles twitched. "Yes, that's noted in reports from 17 different traumatized diplomats." Dr. Poyex, who had volunteered to speak in my defense, stepped forward. Their mandibles were clicking in what I'd learned was barely contained scientific excitement. "Honorable Tribunal, what Engineer Cooper demonstrated was not just emergency repair work, it was an entirely new paradigm of engineering philosophy." They activated their own holographic display. "Observe how each violation of standard protocols actually created a synergistic effect with other violations, resulting in a completely stable, albeit highly unorthodox system. A system that directly contradicts every principle of perfect design," Clavax pointed out. "But I noticed their crystalline structure wasn't showing the same outrage patterns as before. If anything, they seemed curious." "Perfection," I said, deciding it was time to make my case, "is the enemy of functionality. Humans learned that on Earth where everything was constantly trying to kill us. We didn't survive by making perfect systems. We survived by making systems that could fail safely and be repaired creatively." "With adhesive strips?" one of the tribunal members asked skeptically. "With whatever we had on hand. The first human who made fire didn't have a safety manual. The first person to cross an ocean didn't have perfect navigation. We got to the moon using computers less powerful than the device that makes your morning caffeine equivalent. And this duct tape of yours?" I pulled a roll from my pocket. Several tribunal members flinched. "Humanity's first and best solution to the universe's tendency toward chaos. It's not pretty, it's not perfect, but it works. Just like my solution saved the station." The tribunal chambers fell silent except for the soft humming of holographic displays showing my emergency repairs. I could see them struggling with the fundamental conflict between their perfect design principles and the undeniable fact that imperfect human engineering had saved everyone's lives. Finally, the head of the tribunal spoke. "Engineer Cooper, your methods are unorthodox. They violate approximately—" She checked her tablet. 742 different safety protocols. They challenge every principle of proper engineering we hold dear." "But," I prompted hopefully, "but they worked. And more importantly, Dr. Pix's analysis shows they worked in a way that can be studied, understood, and potentially standardized." Clavax's crystalline structure made a sound like shattering glass. "Standardized?" "Indeed," she turned back to me. "Engineer Cooper, the tribunal has decided that rather than punishment, you will be tasked with teaching a new required course at the Galactic Engineering Academy, Emergency Human Engineering Principles and Applications. You want me to teach other species how to break things correctly? We want you to teach them how to think like a human engineer. Because if there's one thing this incident has proven, it's that the galaxy needs engineers who can handle failure as well as success." Also, another tribunal member added, "We need you to write a safety manual for proper duct tape usage. There have been incidents since your repairs became public knowledge." I tried not to smile. "Let me guess, someone tried to use it on a quantum flux capacitor without proper preparation." 3 separate engineering teams on different stations. The resulting spatial anomalies were interesting. And that's how human engineering principles became required study for every engineer in the galaxy. They even added a new section to the perfect design principles. When all else fails, think like a human. Dr. Pix got funding for a new research department studying what they called adaptive emergency engineering paradigms, but what everyone else called breaking things the human way. As for Clarvax, last I heard they were seen in their office trying to understand how duct tape worked. They'd covered their entire desk in it, claiming it was for research purposes. The station's AI developed what Dr. Pix called a fascinating adaptation to human problem-solving methods. It started suggesting unconventional repairs using office supplies. I'm still not sure if that's an improvement or if we should be worried. Oh, and the coffee maker that helped save the station, it got promoted. It now has its own office and the title Emergency Systems Integration Specialist. I'm pretty sure it's planning to take over the station, but that's a problem for another day. Because that's the thing about human engineering. It's not about being perfect. It's about being ready for anything. Even if anything means teaching a coffee maker emergency protocols or leading a conga line of radioactive waste through a diplomatic summit. After all, if humanity's history has taught us anything, it's that the universe's greatest challenges aren't solved by perfect plans. They're solved by someone looking at an impossible problem and saying, "Hold my coffee, I've got some duct tape and a really bad idea." And sometimes that's exactly what the galaxy needs.